It's Chris from Atlantic Outboard, and I'm going to do a digital delivery for Pursuit S288. Come on aboard, I'll walk you through all the details as a boat owner, what you need to do from step one all the way through a day on the water. Let's hop aboard and take a look. Now, the first thing you do when you get on your boat is you're going to want to come over to your battery panel. So you have your main battery switches here, one for the house and one for the engine. So you're going to turn those to on. Okay, you can see the boat just lit up. You'll hear that beeping. That's going to be your VHF. You just have to hit clear. It'll beep like that until you put what's called an MMSI number. Now that number will be issued by Towboat US or CTOW. So once you program that number into your VHF, you won't hear that annoying beep. It's almost like your seatbelt buckle beeping at you till you'll buckle it. So with your batteries on, you can see your voltage here. This particular boat has a bow thruster, so you're going to want to make sure your bow thruster switch is on. And then these are your main breakers. So you can see your electronics you're going to want on, your house main you want on, helm main, cockpit amp. Now, if you don't use the toilet often, you can keep that breaker off. The head macerator stays off, and then the spare stays off. But there's no reason not to keep that electric head switch on also. So day to day, you could leave this configured just like that, and then when you're done with the boat, you could switch the battery switches off. Now, as a note, if you're ever in this situation and you have low voltage on your meter here, you can actually combine the battery power by switching past on to this yellow marker, which is combined batteries. It'll take all the juice out of all the batteries to get those motors started. Once the motors are starting and running, they will be maintaining those batteries and recharging those batteries. So day-to-day use, first thing you get on the boat, turn your battery switching on. You shouldn't really have to play with your breakers. They should basically remain in that position all the time. Next thing you're going to do is come up to the helm area. So let's walk up to the helm. So now that you have your batteries on, you're going to come up to your helm. Now the first thing you do is trim your motors down, put them in the water. Now we're in a showroom, the motors are already down, but when you get on your boat, you hit this button, the down button, and that'll tilt those motors all the way down into the water. Next thing you're going to do is make sure you have your safety lanyard on here, and then you can actually fire those motors up. And it's going to be, you hit the power button to give the motors power, and then push to start on each motor. Again, we're in a showroom. I'm not going to fire them up for you now, but while the motors are idling, warming up, you can run through the rest of the boat, start storing gear, get your family on board, and get ready for a day on the water. Now at the helm, just to run through what you're looking at here, you have twin 12-inch displays. You can configure this how you want. Some people will do a sonar on one side, a GPS on the other. The more you run the boat, you'll figure out how you want this configured. But running through the key switch area here, you're going to have your horn, your nav and anchor light. So if you're running at night, you're going to want to turn that on, and you're going to know it's on by the backlighting there. The tow light is basically a mast light on top. It's called a tow light in case this boat was ever towed by like a mega yacht, if you're fortunate enough for that. Cockpit lights, you could turn on these cockpit lights for extra courtesy lighting. You have hardtop lighting. Now the trick with the hardtop lights is you have color changing. So every time you hit the switch, it'll change between red, white, and blue. Now here's another tip. A lot of times these lights will get out of sync of each other. It's very common. To resync them, you hold the button down, hold the switch down, and it will reset. And then you can start fresh, and they should be in sync with each other. Moving further to the right, you have your spreader lights. You're going to have spreader lights forward and aft. Underwater lights, if the boat is optioned with underwater lights. Mid-level lighting, you're going to have additional courtesy lights up front. Windlass deploy and retrieve on the anchor. And then these are generic panels, so you'll have an accessory switch. So if we add further components, say a spotlight to the boat, you could wire it to that switch. Now down on the bottom, you're going to have an aft bilge manual switch. Now the bilge pump is wired directly to the batteries. So if you're at home and for whatever reason the bilge has water in it and water's getting in, the automatic float will pump that water out. But if you're washing the boat down and you want to manually turn that pump on, there is a switch to do so. To use your freshwater system, any freshwater in this boat, whether it be the sinks, the head compartment, any freshwater, the freshwater washdown, you need to have that freshwater switch on to pressurize the pump. The washdown is for your saltwater washdown. Now, it pulls water from outside the boat. If you're in a lake, it would be freshwater, but most of the time these boats are in the salt. It would be pulling water from outside the boat and running it through the live well or your saltwater washdown. So you would have to hit the switch for washdown to prime that pump and leave it on all the time. Now these are on pressure switches, so it'll only turn the pump on as it needs to build pressure, and once the pressure is built up, it'll shut that switch off. To use your live well, you just hit the live well switch. It'll start pumping seawater into that live well. It has an automatic overflow, so you could leave that live well on all day, even overnight. You have a wiper switch. That's self-explanatory. If you're taking spray on the windshield, you could spray off the windshield with wipe off the windshield with your windshield wiper. This also has the windshield washer option. So as long as you have your fresh water switch on and you hit windshield washer, it will use that fresh water to spray clean fresh water onto the glass to get some dried salt off. Again, these are generic panels, so you'll see a power steering switch. That's from the previous generation motors. Now these new digital 300s with digital electric steering, you don't need to turn on a power steering switch. These are all electric steering. There is no power steering. It's all electric. And then again, you're going to have blank accessory switches. To use your bow thruster, you're simply going to hold the button down. You'll see the light come on, and then you'll have power to that thruster. After about 6-7 minutes, that bow thruster light will go off, which means you will have to go back to it and hold that button down again to be able to use it. So a tip is before you leave the dock, turn that bow thruster on. When you're coming back into dock, turn that bow thruster on again. This button here would adjust the tilt of the helm. So the ergonomics at the helm can change depending on your height. You have your VHF stereo speaker here. Basically, you have a speaker in the VHF, but this is a remote speaker to give you more volume. You know, when those motors are running and you're doing 30 miles an hour, if someone's actually trying to contact you, it's better to have a really loud speaker there. So you could turn the volume up here and there on this knob, or you could turn it up on the remote itself. Trim tabs, you're going to have trim tab switches here with indicators. So when the motors are fired up and you'll see one light up top, as you push the trim tabs down, the light will actually go down also to show you at what level those trim tabs are at. The shifters, very self-explanatory. In this middle position, you're in neutral. As soon as you push it forward, you'll feel a click into gear. That's actually turning the propeller. So as you push them forward, you're in gear, and then the farther you push them forward is the more throttle you get. As you pull them back, you'll feel a detent click, that's just still in gear, and then you'll feel another click, and then again, that's in neutral. Same thing with reverse. One click in reverse, and then pushed all the way back, that's more throttle. With these fly-by-wire design throttles, you're going to want to get used to the tension needed to shift these, because you could simply just go wide open and you got 600 horses back there. So you just want to make sure you understand what you're doing before you go and do that. Stereo setup here, you can pair your phone via Bluetooth. You have a little cubby here with charge ports, so you could throw your phone in there and charge it if you want to keep it out of the elements. You have some stainless cup holders. Serviceability, as a boat owner, you're probably not going to be servicing your electronics yourself, but if you wanted to, this entire dash will rotate back. There's some tensioner knobs up there, but for our service techs to get behind that, they're going to release those knobs and this whole dash will come back. So you got your batteries on, you got your motors fired up, everybody's stored their gear, everybody's grabbing a seat. At this point, you can start untying your boat and go out for a day on the water. So in the bilge area of your pursuit, I don't care if you're a novice or an expert, you really need to know what's going on down there, because God forbid something happened, you really need to know how to solve that problem. Most of the time, you really don't have to go down there day to day, but again, you have to understand what everything is and what it does, and you know, if you had an issue, you need to know how to remedy it. In the bilge of this 28, Pursuit stores a dedicated storage for a cockpit table, and then they have this ladder that deploys off your port side dive door. So those are stored in there. If you're using those items, obviously they slide out. Just pay attention how they actually are stored before you pull them out so you can put them back in. But the important stuff is going to be your through-hull valves. Now, Pursuit is smart. They put zip ties with labels on all the through-hull valves. It sounds so simple, but I haven't seen another manufacturer that does that. So you can actually troubleshoot. Like if your bait well pump's not working, all right, well, let's open up the bilge. Is my valve open for my live well? There it is. So this particular scenario right now, the live well is closed. This is a new boat in a showroom. So the valve is closed. But as you start to look around here, you're going to see your bait well pump with a closed through-hull valve, and then it connects to a sea strainer, and then the pump will send water up to your live well. If you were ever in an emergency situation, you're going to have that through-hull valve. It's very similar to what you would see in your basement. It's a handle closed ball valve. If there was ever a scenario where water was getting into the boat and your bilge pump's on and you don't know where the water is coming from, first thing you do is open up this space. If there's water sloshing around down here, you need to start isolating those through-hull valves. The only way water can get into these boats is A, if you hit something, which you're going to know about, or B, some sort of fitting broke free and there's water coming up through those through-hulls. So you can isolate those valves by simply just closing them. If you end up stopping the water from coming in the boat, the bilge pumps will catch up. At that point, you probably should go home, call a service technician, and we can figure out what went wrong. But there's other brands that don't give you this access to your bilge. There's very popular brands, I'm not going to name them, but if you don't have access to those through-hull valves, if you're taking on water, you and your family are going to be swimming in the water next to your boat as it's sinking because you have no way of isolating those through-hull valves. So when you're boat shopping, it's very important to think of the worst-case scenario and see how the boat is constructed and accessibility to get to those through-hull valves. So again, you got a table, you got a ladder, you got through-hull valves. Now we're going to do some close-ups on the float switch for your bilge pump. Pursuit uses what's called a water witch. Now when you look down there, it almost looks like a coin. It's a silver round piece. A lot of times we'll get calls that the high water alarm will be going off. What ends up happening is the sensor. And when water touches that sensor, it'll kick on that switch and pump the water out. Well, sometimes if you don't keep a tidy bilge, that sensor will get clogged up with mildew or something, and it'll give it a false reading and think there's water in there and there's not. Pro tip on keeping a bilge clean is I would always recommend put a little splash of bleach into your bilge, once a month, every couple months, and it'll keep the growth out of the bilge. So you won't open this up and have mildew and smell and all that. So, as you're cleaning your boat, if you have bleach in your dock box, just put a little splash in the bilge. It'll chlorinate that water similar to a pool, so you're not getting all that growth and slime, and it'll keep all those components nice. You just don't want to put any bleach on any electrical connections. Just put it straight into the bilge where the rest of the water is, and it'll keep that from growing growth. So in review, you have through-hull valves, ladder, table, bilge pumps, the valves, which we're going to show you some close-ups of. Those are the important things to understand where they are and how they work. So now I'm in the forward entry head compartment of your S288. I want to give you an overview of what's going on down here. So when you plug the boat into shore power at the end of the day, you're going to want to come down here and make sure you're seeing the voltage. There's a little needle here. Now, if I shut off the switch, you see the voltage, the needle goes to 0. Well, when you're plugged in and you turn that switch on, you'll see the voltage go up. So basically, it's telling you that you're getting electricity from the dock. You would want to make sure that your battery charger switch is on. That's actually charging the battery. That's the whole point of plugging it in. And then these, if you wanted to use this outlet, say for an electric toothbrush charger or something like that, you would have to turn on the switch for the outlets also. So this is only for shore power and charging the boat. You also have a toilet paper holder down here with a cover to keep, if you spray down here, you're not going to soak your toilet paper. Then over on the other side here is the controls to actually flush the toilet. So this is a smart toilet. It's got 4 different options for flush. Trust me when I say just do the minimal amount of water. You don't want to do triple flush and run through all your fresh water and end up filling up your waste system. So in the top left, you'll see where it says water saver. That's more than enough to flush. I would stick with that. Now, this boat does have the ability for overboard discharge. Now, you have to be about 4 miles offshore for that to be legal. Most people in the marinas are bringing their boat back, and then they'll have the waste pumped out by a pump out service. But just so you understand how this works, say you're out tuna fishing offshore, far away from shore, and you wanted to pump your waste. It is legal. You would have to open a valve in the bilge, and then you would turn on the breaker next to the battery switch, which we showed you, that says head macerator. Once that's on, you would come down here and have to hold this switch to pump that waste overboard. Again, most people are just bringing the boat back to the dock and they call their pump out service. But so other than that, you have your toilet down here. They give you this nice fiberglass shroud, which creates a seat, so you're not physically sitting on the toilet if you had to come down here and change. But when you open this up, the toilet seat will actually hold that up. You can do what you have to do and then close this down, and then the seat will come down. This particular boat has all these straps here for storage of the bow filler cushions and stuff, which we took out to give it more space at the moment. Now in the forward floor hatch up in the bow, you have access to your bow thruster battery. There's a cover over the physical bow thruster. It also creates a step. You have your freshwater pump, your freshwater holding tank, and then you have a waste pump out. So like we talked about in the last video, if you ever wanted to pump waste overboard, which you have to be a certain amount of miles offshore, this is the valve here, and it says head overboard discharge, clearly labeled. You have to open that valve. You have another valve here that actually is from drainage from this gutter system. So as water gets into this gutter, it'll actually drain overboard directly there. You have your freshwater pump here. You can see the lines are coated with blue, so you know it is fresh water. This can also be used as storage. So this is a good place to put, your big bag of life jackets out of the way so it's not clogging up the rest of your storage that you're using more commonly. But this is a good amount of space. Just be smart about it when you're putting your life jackets down there. Don't jam them against electrical connectors and stuff, but this is a good amount of space for storage. So up in the anchor locker of your S288, you have this nice courtesy light, which is even helping us today to see what's going on. You have a saltwater washdown, which is helpful. So when you buy this boat, you're going to get these coiled up hoses that have a quick connection. So whether you're using it in the back for freshwater or saltwater, or you could plug it in here, it's super convenient. It's a quick connection. To plug it in, you just snap it into place, and to take it off, you slide the collar back, and then the hose will come off. This is helpful for when you're hauling that anchor and your chain is covered in mud from the bottom. You can literally spray the hose as it's coming through the chute at the front of the boat, and it'll keep all that mud outside the boat. But what to understand the process when you're ready to drop anchor, you come up here, you have to remove this safety chain. That's step number 1. Now this boat will come with a remote also. The remote will plug in to this black connector here. So you'll literally be able to disconnect this, hold your remote here, and drop the anchor and be able to visually see everything that's happening. You do have a cleat up here, so once you drop your anchor, it's very important to understand that you do have to cleat it. You don't want the whole weight of this boat on this winch. So once you drop your chain out, you'll get some odd feet of rope out, and then once you have enough rope out, give it a little slack with your remote, and then put a figure-8 cleat and a half hitch onto that cleat to secure it directly to the cleat. And again, you don't want the weight of the boat all on this windlass. So you also have access to visually see all your anchor line if there was ever a snag or something, but it's clean space, easy to get to, and Pursuit also gives you this high-end shackle, which is swiveling shackle to always make sure that anchor comes up in the right position. So good job by Pursuit on this. Thanks for watching the digital delivery of this Pursuit S288. Now we covered the more complicated features like trimming your motors, turning your battery switches on, and what all the switches do at the helm. There are some basic stuff that the more you use the boat, you'll pick up on it. But if you do have any questions, reach out to us at Atlantic Outboard. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out at AtlanticOutboard.com. Feel free to give us a call, come down to the showroom. Love to chat with you and show you some product.